In the evening, he would slip into her chambers, dressed only in a nightgown, with a cap on his head, a lantern in one hand, a sword in the other, and a bottle of water tucked under his arm. Princess Maria Louisa of Orléans, renowned for her beauty, had no right to choose her own husband. She was the daughter of Henrietta of England and Philippe, Duke of Orléans. Since Henrietta had an affair with Louis XIV, the brother of her husband, there were suspicions that Maria Louisa of Orléans might have been the illegitimate daughter of the King of France himself. Maria Louisa was raised far from her royal family. She was born in the year 1662. At the age of 4, she inherited a significant sum of money from her beloved grandmother, Anne of Austria. But as an 8-year-old child, the French princess lost her mother. Henrietta of England died suddenly. According to the official version, it was due to peritonitis, but according to the second wife of the Duke of Orléans, it was due to poisoning. It was Elizabeth Charlotte of the Palatinate, the second wife of the Duke of Orléans, who managed to replace Maria Louisa's mother. At court, there were rumors that this clever little girl would marry the French Dauphin, the heir to the throne. And no one was troubled by the fact that the future spouses were cousins. However, in the year 1672, plans for Maria Louisa changed. That ill-fated year, Princess Marie-Thérèse, the 5-year-old daughter of the King of France, died of tuberculosis. She had been destined to marry the King of Spain, Charles II. Yes, this marriage too would have been between close relatives, as Charles II and Queen Marie-Thérèse of Spain, the mother of Marie-Thérèse of France, were half-siblings. France and Spain were often on the brink of war, and political marriages were necessary to maintain balance between the two nations. Therefore, Louis XIV replaced his daughter with his 16-year-old niece, Maria Louisa. Upon hearing that her hand had been given to the King of Spain, the young woman fainted. Her despair was understandable to many. Charles II was a product of Habsburg inbreeding, mentally impaired, with a protruding lower lip that prevented him from speaking clearly and caused constant drooling. Charles II suffered from epileptic seizures, digestive disorders, and had great difficulty moving independently. All of his portraits were somewhat embellished by painters in exchange for generous rewards. Maria Louisa of Orléans, according to her contemporaries, was a beautiful and graceful princess who inherited delicate features from her mother and black hair from her father. In France, she had received an excellent education. She knew Latin, sang well, danced, and played music. Some portraits might cast doubt on her beauty, but they were painted in Spain, so perhaps they were made to make her resemble her rather unattractive husband. According to some rumors of the time, Maria Louisa fainted on her wedding night as well. She found her husband repulsive, and this was entirely justified, despite Charles II's good manners. It remains unknown to this day whether their marriage was ever consummated. The king was accused of incompetence in such matters, while the queen, distressed by the marriage, was accused of infertility. One monk even suggested that Charles undergo an unusual and even sacrilegious exorcism, which involved rubbing relics on their bodies as they lay together in bed. However, even this procedure proved ineffective, and in the end, the royal couple had no children. For us, of course, this is unsurprising, given the health of Charles II. Nevertheless, the shared goal of conceiving an heir ultimately brought the couple closer together. Maria Louisa resigned herself to her fate. It is likely that, in her own way, she even loved her husband. And perhaps they would have lived long and happily if not for the Queen's sudden death on the 12th of February, in the year 1689. Officially, she died of natural causes, but the court buzzed with rumors of poisoning. After all, she was an inconvenient, childless queen. After a horseback ride, Maria Louisa felt a pain in her abdomen. At first, it was dismissed as a common ailment, as the queen, who had been in a constant state of melancholy, had gained significant weight in her later years due to her fondness for food. She consumed large amounts of sugar daily. However, today we can assume that Maria Luisa suffered from acute appendicitis or had issues with her pancreas. Maria Luisa died the following night. At that moment, she was only 26 years old. It was only after her death that the Spanish people began to speak kindly of their late queen. In France, the prevailing narrative was that of a young queen languishing in Madrid, held captive at a gloomy court, a prisoner of a king and a people who despised everything French. The Spanish antipathy towards their queen was undeniable, just as the French prejudice against Spain was evident. Yet Maria Luisa was, above all, a shy young woman who knew her duties, but was utterly unprepared for the challenges imposed by her role as queen. Charles II remembered his elegant and beloved Maria Luisa until his dying days. Shortly before his death, the king opened Maria Luisa's tomb and gazed at her with painful admiration before fleeing in fear. French chroniclers recorded that the young queen's body was still intact with all her clothing, and her face was somewhat flushed, although it remains curious how a corpse could have a red complexion. Thus was born the legend of Maria Luisa, the French heraldic lily, carried away by the southern wind of Spain.